They don't want you to actually die. They don't want you to gum up the works. They don't want you to up the hospital networks. They want you to be able to go back to work 3 days instead of taking 3 weeks off. That's why vaccines are important for everyone. But ultimately, if you care about, mitigating some of the worst consequences of COVID, then yes, you should get vaccinated. So your interests align in that regard. That's precisely why all of these billionaires and millionaires were getting the vaccine before anybody else. Having said that, however, these nutters still exist. And then they point to the very valid skepticism exists within big pharma and the revolving door between the regulatory agencies. Pharmacy company want to keep you alive because that's how they make money. Oh my God. But don't you want to stay alive? This is exactly what I'm trying to explain to you. And no, you're wrong. Globally speaking, or at least even historically speaking, that is not what has driven pharmaceutical innovation. Even to this day, medical innovation is not simply operated on the profit motive. What turns medicine sour, I would say, what actually holds back innovation in the medical field is literally the profit motive. Dumping a load of money into R&D, but the R&D is not actually finding new ways of using existing medication for different ailments, but instead finding new ways of extending your patent is actually against innovation. It actually harms innovation in the medical field. But most novel chemical compounds are still found in publicly funded research facilities, not by people who want to make billions of dollars or whatever, but oftentimes just people working to genuinely advance mankind, people working to, make medicine readily available. That's why some of the most important medical innovation in the form of novel chemical compounds and their application in the medical field have come from people who have literally given their patents out for no money whatsoever. Okay, insulin being a phenomenal example of this. I don't know why I'm brought out to the forefront. I agree. Yeah, he is anti-vax though. Yeah, landlords want to sell you houses, you need shelter, or landlords want you to rent the house from them and you need shelter, so you have no choice. That doesn't mean houses are bad as a concept. Thank you. That is a brilliant analogy, chatter. Thank you so much. I believe that the profit motive should be completely ripped away from medical innovation and the field of pharmaceuticals in general and healthcare in general, okay? I am a major advocate for free healthcare. Major advocate for free healthcare. I think it's gross. It's disgusting. There's an inelastic demand there regardless. So even from a hyper-capitalist framework, everybody understands. Anyone who's ever taken a microecon or macroecon principles class understands that healthcare has inelastic demand and therefore has to be heavily regulated. What will be the incentive to innovate? What do you mean, brother? What do you mean? I just explained to you that there is no incentive to innovate in terms of profit right now. Almost all of the novel chemical compounds come from pharmaceutical research happening at publicly funded institutions. You think scientists are only doing science because they want to make money? That's crazy. A lot of this mismatch in this field specifically, the anti-vaxxer, is literally born out of weird juxtaposition of looking at your medical care professionals and thinking of them as people who are trying to farm you, people who are trying to make money off of you. That is where a lot of the skepticism comes from. And I don't think people understand how dangerous that is for the future of mankind. Okay? It should not be profit driven. The people that actually make out like bandits in the pharmaceutical field, in the field of medicine, are not the actual grad researchers, okay? They're barely making ends meet. I fear that you've never actually met someone who is a PhD, who is actually a grad student working on this research. So you just in your mind think these are all homosexual Marxists, but then also simultaneously multimillionaires only working on this kind of stuff specifically for the profit motive, when it is the furthest from the truth. They make maximum $30,000 a year, barely can make ends meet. And the only reason why they're doing it is because they want to advance mankind. They have genuine fascination with whatever they're working on, and they want to also make the world a better place. This is a normal incentive that a lot of human beings have. Okay? The people that are actually making the money are executives that don't actually play a role in the research part at all. They are the ones who then land on the patents and then try to work as best as they can to extend those patents. Use all the money that they make and dump it back into marketing. Use all the money that they make and dump it back into research and development, but not necessarily for novel chemical compound discovery, but instead research and development for new mechanisms of delivery. This is a trick. Pharmaceutical companies companies use, Big Pharma uses, to extend the patents that they have. Oh, this was a normal drug that you need, but now you can put it up your... We still maintain another 5-year extension on the patent, so you can't get the generic version. There's a lot of issues here. Proof of your point. Doctors Without Borders, medical professionals who could make lots of money, still go out into dangerous areas and give care for free. Exactly. People always talk about how, profit motives, and including Joe Rogan, who doesn't understand it, by the way. Joe Rogan doesn't understand the problem. He's literally talking about how the systems are so broken fundamentally, but doesn't understand what the reasoning is. So inevitably, you just go back to this, they are doing this attitude. Who is they? Well, Joe Rogan himself might not think it's Jews. I don't think he is. I don't think he believes that. But plenty of people do attribute the they to Jews. But it's not the anti-Semitism in this circumstance that I'm complaining about. It's the lack of interest in examining the underlying reasons as to why this structural problem exists. And the structural problem exists because of capitalism, because people have lied for years and years about the profit motive and how that is the only reason why people do.
There's the revolving door between the CDC and the FDA and then these pharmaceutical drug companies. So the people that make the regulations then go on to have these cushy jobs with the pharmaceutical drug corporations. Oh, nothing to see here. It's it's open. It's right out in the open.
Right.
And when he talks about all that stuff in his book, you're just what the and if this wasn't true, he would be sued.
American freedom of speech, unfortunately, in a circumstance like this, fortunately it exists, but unfortunately in circumstances like this one, make it virtually impossible to genuinely be litigious against someone who writes unhinged in a book. He endorsed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in this video. What I find very funny about this is that he had a bit of a Kyle Rittenhouse moment. He endorsed RFK Jr. and immediately the Republicans were like, oh, what the you? Cat Turd, one of my favorite political commentators in the space, probably the GOAT, the greatest of all time to do it, the greatest white boy to ever do it, came out and was talking about how Joe Rogan is gay. Literally, immediately. It's like that. They have one defense. Cat Turd, the left crying about Joe Rogan 24/7 is making him 1,000 times more popular. Dear leftist, ... Joe Rogan can say anything he wants on his podcast, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it but cry. Joe Rogan endorses RFK Jr. So I've never been a Joe Rogan fan. Can't stand him. Yes, he has a popular podcast, but I've always thought he was absolutely politically dumb. He's great at figuring things out 2 years after we do. What a legend. So did it surprise me when he endorsed idiot RFK Jr. today? LOL. No. We are talking about the same idiot who endorsed Bernie Sanders, right? He's the podcast equivalent of a dumb blonde joke. Who has the gayest low IQ dumb male blonde joke political infant podcast in the world? Joe Rogan. Answer A. Answer B. Also Joe Rogan. So that's the beauty of it all. These guys are an insane cult. And they did this to Kyle Rittenhouse the other day as well. If you remember, Kyle Rittenhouse also came out and had a brief moment. It was a blip, basically. Kyle Rittenhouse himself came out and was like, hey, I don't think I'm going to support Donald Trump because Donald Trump is not good at gun laws. Kyle Rittenhouse, for those of you who don't know, is a person who very specifically went to kill people at a BLM protest as a counter protester, an agitator, got away with it as well, legal to do that sort of thing, and was a beloved figure by the right for quite some time. But here's what happened to him the other week. Kyle Rittenhouse said he wasn't going to vote for Trump due to him being bad on the Second Amendment. The MAGA circus went immediately ballistic, called him a traitor, and created a conspiracy that he's actually a trans woman and a part of the globalist Illuminati. Here's the video.
Hi, I'm Kyle Rittenhouse, Outreach Director for Texas Gun Rights. A lot of people are upset that I said I'm going to be writing in Ron Paul for President of the United States. And that is true. I will be writing in Ron Paul. Unfortunately, Donald Trump had bad advisors making him bad on the Second Amendment, and that is my issue. If you cannot be completely uncompromisable on the Second Amendment, I will not vote for you, and I will write somebody else in. We need champions for the Second Amendment, or our rights will be eaten away and eroded each day. I support my decision, and I have no takebacks.
That was wrong. He did have a take back. So after 24 hours of every Republican immediately doing this to him, he did take it back. It's all a psyop, says Isaac's Army. He's a she. Q told us symbolism will be their downfall. Q told us infiltration instead of invasion. They literally started saying he was actually a woman and also gay and also a Freemason and also Illuminati and possibly Jewish. So then he turned around and said, over the past 12 hours, I've had a series of productive conversations with members of the Trump's team, and I'm confident he will be the strong ally gun owners need to defend our Second Amendment rights. My comments made last night were ill-informed and unproductive. I'm 100% behind Donald Trump